We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Dalet Amud Aleph and Meseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 64a. This is the beginning of the 9th parak of Meseches Nedarim. The Mishnah says, Rabbi Eliezer says, Poschin la'adam b'chvod aviv v'imo. We can create a Pesach for a person in order to undo the neder using the honor of the person's mother or the person's father. The Chachamim osrin, and the Chachamim say that is prohibited. You cannot create a Pesach in that fashion. The Mefarish says, Rabbi Eliezer, Omer Poschin la'adam b'chvod aviv v'imo, she'omer lo ilu ha'yisa yodea she'omer malavicha, oilo la'av she'gidel ben rasha kazeh shu'parz ben adorim. We say to the person, had you known after that when you made this neder, people would say about your father, woe is to the father of this individual that's such a rasha, this individual is such a rasha that he makes nedarim like this. Shekein rishoyim darkon linder, because that's the way of rishoyim to make nedarim. Kedamrin and le'el, v'perkan kama, that's what we said in the earlier parak. V'yamamar lav, and if he says no, the ilu hayisi yodeh, had I known that would happen, lo hayisi noder, I would never have made the neder, matirin lo. So we say that's a good Pesach, and we therefore say that it is permitted, we matter the neder for him. And again, the Chachamim say that is prohibited. You can't make a Pesach and say, had you known what they would have said about your father, that's not considered to be a good Pesach, and the Gemara will explain the Chachamim further. And the Mishnah continues, Amar Rabbi Tzadok says, until you make a Pesach using the honor of his father and the honor of his mother, so yiftachu lo b'chvod hamakom, you should make a Pesach using the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Imkain, and if so, ein nedarim, there would be no nedarim. The Mefarish over here says, Rabbi Tzadok Omer Achaposchin lo b'chvod aviv v'imo kilomer imkain, meaning to say, if that was the case, that you could use the honor of a person's father and mother, so then yicholim liftoch lo b'chvod aviv v'imo poschin lo nami b'chvod hamakom. So then you might as well make a Pesach using the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sheyicholim lomar lo, that we can say to him, nami also, shekeneged HaKadosh Baruch Hu osa shenoder v'rashu l'shamayim. We can say, if you realized that you were considered a rasha to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, would you have made this neder? And that should also be a good Pesach. And Elo imata omer kain. Now the gears of the Mefarish is that this is all a statement of Rabbi Tzadok. There are other Rishonim who say that Rabbi Tzadok is legitimately arguing that according to Rabbi Eliezer, you should have a Pesach b'chvod hamakom, and then we have a response of imkain from the Chachamim, and the Chachamim say that cannot be. The Mefarish's gear says that this is all a statement of Rabbi Tzadok. Rabbi Tzadok is the one saying this cannot be. So Elo imata omer kain, and we'll use the girsa of the Mefarish. That's the girsa that we have in our Mishnah. So Elo imata omer kain sheposchin lo bekach. If you say that you can make a Pesach using HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so ein nedarim, so there would be no nedarim. The Gemara will explain what exactly that means, ein nedarim. But again, according to our gears in the Mishnah, Rabbi Tzadok is essentially arguing with Rabbi Eliezer, and he's saying, if you're saying you can use the chvod aviv v'imo, then you could also use the chvod hamakom, and that would mean ein nedarim. That would be a problem. And the Mishnah continues, Modim Chachamim Rabbi Eliezer. Now the Chachamim admit to Rabbi Eliezer. They say you could use as a Pesach the Chvod Aviv and Imo, B'davar Shebeino Levein Aviv Imo. If it's something which the original neder was between him and his father and his mother, Sheposchin lo b'Chvod Aviv Imo, then you could make a Pesach using Kvod Aviv and Kvod Imo. And the Mefarish says, B'davar Shebeino Levein Aviv Imo b'masha heder v'heim tzrichim lo lahanaaso Sheposchin lo b'Chvodam. In other words, you have a situation now. Let's say he made a neder that they're not allowed to get benefit from him. Now they need to get benefit from him. So there you are allowed to create a Pesach using their kavod. That would be fine. And the Mishnah continues, V'od Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Further, Rabbi Eliezer says as follows, Poschin b'nolad, you're allowed to make a Pesach, you're allowed to create a Pesach using an event that was not true at the time of the neder. Something new has happened that also is good for a Pesach according to Rabbi Eliezer. V'chachamim osrin, and the Chachamim say that is osir. And the Mishnah explains the case. Ketzar, how so? Amar konem shani nene leish ploni v'nasa sofer osho yamasias beno. Let's say you have a situation where a person says, he makes a konem, I'm not going to derive any benefit from so-and-so, and then that particular person becomes a scribe, and so now he needs the services of that particular person. Or the individual is marrying off his son, and now he's making a big feast in the town, and the person wants to partake. V'yamar, and so now the person who made the neder, he says, Ilu hayisi yodea shu nasa sofer, had I known that this person would become a scribe, osho yamasias beno, that he was going to be marrying off his son Bekarov in the near future, lo hayisi noder, I would never have made this neder. And the Mishnah continues along the same lines. Konim l'bayis zeh shani nichnas. Let's say a person makes a neder not to enter a particular house. V'nasa beis hakneses, and now that house becomes a synagogue. Amar, and he says, Ilu hayisi yodea shu nasa beis hakneses. Had I known that this particular house would become a beis hakneses, lo hayisi noder, I never would have made a neder. Now all of these cases are nolad because these are events that happened after he made the neder. Now suddenly this house becomes a beis hakneses. Suddenly this person becomes a sofer. This person is making a wedding. So in these cases, again, this is a machlokes. Rabbi Eliezer matter. Rabbi Eliezer says it's mutter. You can use this nolad as a pesach. The chachamim motion, and the chachamim say that it is prohibited. And the Gemara says, "Mai ein nedarim." What does it mean in the Mishnah when it says that if you said you're going to make a pesach bechvod hamakom, so then there would be no nedarim? Amar Abaya. Abaya says, "Imkain, if so, ein nedarim nitarin yaf." If that was the case, the nedarim would not become mutter in the proper fashion. And the Mefarish over here says, "My ein nedarim dekamar lon Rabbi Tzadok Rabbi Eliezer ein nedarim." Rabbi Tzadok is saying to Rabbi Eliezer, again, this is according to the girsa of the Mefarish, that it's Rabbi Tzadok that is making the entire comment to Rabbi Eliezer and saying, if so, there would be no nedarim. What he means, according to Abaya, is nitarin yafeh, wouldn't be made mutter in the proper fashion. The idea would be as follows. Let's say the person really, he doesn't regret it. Really, it's not true. He says, I don't care if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would think I'm a sinner, or if my father and mother would be shamed for this. I don't really care. But mitoch shemaim and olav kol kach mishum chvod aviv v'imo. But now they're making him so afraid already because they're saying, had you known this, would you have taken the neder? And of course, he's not going to want to say that he doesn't care about that. So Omer shemischaret. So he says, oh yeah, I do regret it. I would never have done it had I known it would bring dishonor to my father and mother, because he has to say that. Avalein mischaret legamri. But maybe he really doesn't have charata. So in other words, if you're going to, the argument Rabbi Tzadok is making to Rabbi Eliezer is, if you're going to allow these kinds of this kind of charata, this kind of a pesach, so then you're going to end up having a pesach of charata that isn't a real charata. The person doesn't really regret it. He doesn't really care that HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinks he's a sinner. He doesn't really care about the honor of his father and his mother, but he's going to say that he cares because he feels like he's forced to say that. And that's not going to really be a good heter. You're going to end up being mater and neder incorrectly. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Dalid Amud Beis.